So thank you all for coming to the second part of Introduction to Spreadsheets by our community partner, Dennis Dater from the Bay Area Seniors Computer Club. I want to thank Dennis for all his volunteering for the library over the years, and I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're just looking at my computer screen. We left off looking at spreadsheets and some of the things about it. I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet we used before. And I asked if there were any questions. It didn't appear to be. So I'm going to continue with about half a dozen subjects, and then we'll go into a Q&A. If you do have some questions, please let me know or let Paul know. One of the things that Excel uses is called relative addressing. That's this here. An example of that would be if I set up a little formula and I said, I want this cell added to this cell, and what's the total? Okay, total is 7, all right? And if we look at the formula here, it's D3 plus E3. Now, one of the nice features of Excel is you can move this around, okay? And this value didn't change, okay? Excel automatically relocated where the formula is coming from, and that's the relative address capability. And relative address is very nice. Most of the things you will do, we use relative address. However, there is a case that might come up where you do not want to use relative addressing. And that's what this image looks like. Here's a little menu, right? And it has different items in it. It has prices, quantity, sales tax, and a total, all right? And if I looked at the cell right here for sales tax, I don't know if that's real visible for everybody or not. Can you see it? Or is it too small? Anyway, it says B4, and here's B4, the price, times C4, which is the quantity, times E2, and over here is E2, and E2 is the sales tax. It therefore calculates sales tax here, because you want to know the price times the quantity times whatever the tax is. If you go over here to the total, right, it's these two items plus whatever the sales tax amount is. This time they didn't use the cell so much as they used the quantity that came up, okay? So these two items plus this. And that's pretty standard and nothing special about that, right? Now, if I came over here, and we know we can drag things down, and I'm going to drag things down here, right? All of these values, you know, look reasonable. And if I took a look at one of the cells, okay, it's B5 plus C5 plus G5, right? Now, watch what happens if I want to do the same thing for calculating the sales tax. I'll come over to the little corner and I'll drag things down. Well, maybe I won't.
I don't think you highlighted the first box.
Yeah. You're correct. How's that look? Crazy numbers here.
Yeah.
Right? And these numbers, let's drag them down again. Okay, already data. What has happened here is, if we go over to the formula for the total, okay, it is taking the line from 5 here, here, and here, and trying to do something with it, right? And it is not calculating with the value of the sales tax. The value of sales tax here is crazy, right? The problem we're having basically is.
Sounds right to me.
I'm sorry?
Sounds right to me, the way things are going.
Mhm. You like those sales tax?
Yeah,
Okay.
Careful what you wish for.
I'm not wishing.
Yeah.
I'm stating a fact.
Well, if you look at this formula, it's B4C4 times E2, okay? And if we come over here, here's E2, right? But if I go down to the next cell, it's times E3. E3 is right here. If I go to the next cell, E4 is here. So what is happening is Excel is taking this particular formula and using it as a relative value and making the increments on all of the fields as we go down. Well, I don't want to take this value and plug it in here. Right? What I want to do is stay and use this 8% and not change it. And the way you accomplish that is something called absolute addressing. Absolute addressing tells Excel, do not move the cell address from this location. Just take whatever's in the cell and whoever references it, keep the absolute address going. The way you do that for Excel is you come over here and you put a $sign in front of the two addresses. Now, I could have used one address here and frozen either the row or frozen the column. But in this case, I want to freeze both. So I'm going to hit this value. It's still calculated the same number, okay? This is still B4 times C4 times the sales tax amount. But this time around, if I drag them down, well, doesn't want to drag down. Let's try again. Well, sales tax came out crazy.
I think it's because it says E4.
B4, C4, E4, right?
Oh,
Why does it sell? Huh. Well, my little example didn't work. I'm not sure why. Let me do something real fast. And this is what saves me all the time. I mess around with stuff. I close it and I say, don't save. And I'll open it back up. We'll go back again. All right. So what I'm going to do is try one more time. We'll put in a $sign. We'll put in another $sign. Right. Now this time I'm going to attempt to drag it down again. And it looks like I'm calculating sales tax. We'll come over here. And it worked. Hooray. I get paid. Okay. Does this make sense to everybody? If we take a look, the sales tax is still frozen in each one of these. It did not change relative, but these change. B7, C7, E2, 88, E2. Nothing has changed here because we did an absolute address. Now, let me come back over here. All right. So the absolute address, if I put something in, it would be a $sign and some number, another $sign, and some other number. And these numbers are whatever the cell references. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on that?
There's $2 need to go in there.
Yeah. I'm glad you got that. $2. Okay.
All right.
So these are the two basic ways you can reference. Now, there's a couple of other ways which you may or may not ever get involved with. But sometimes what happens is you're going to have information on a particular spreadsheet and you need some information from another spreadsheet. And that's a link to another spreadsheet. So I'll show you what happens here. Let's say we set up a little formula here. And I want this plus this plus, and the value I'm looking for is not located here. It's located on another spreadsheet. So I'm going down here from sheet 1, I'm going down here to sheet 2, okay? And this is the number I want, right? I want to take the value that's sitting in B3, and I want to take it over to the other location. And if you take a look what happened, we took the 5, the 2, and the 10, and it got all added up to the 17. And if we look at the formula here, we can see here's the B10, E10, and then something looks very strange. It says sheet 2, exclamation point, B3. And this is the form here. If you're referencing an outside worksheet from the one you're on, you take the sheet name, the exclamation, and the cell address on this sheet, and it works over here. Now, I don't know if that's strange for everybody or if it makes sense.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Okay. Now, I spent a good hour trying to figure this out because I was doing it wrong. So I'd like to show you what it's a very simple mistake you can make. Okay. If I wanted to do an add on this sheet, okay, I come over here and I click the first one, and all I'm doing is clicking it, no other action. I put in the plus sign, I come over, I click the second one, I'm putting in a plus sign. And then I went over to the second one and I clicked it, okay? Just like I had done on the first sheet. And I go back to the first sheet. Notice what has happened, right? Instead of saying sheet 2 here, it says sheet 1.
Mm.
And that drove me nuts. I read a whole bunch of stuff on the web and I kept on missing something very simple. And let me show you what is very simple here. I'll save you a couple hours here. For this number, in addition to highlighting it, you must hit the enter key. And as soon as you hit the enter key, it jumps back to the original spreadsheet with the correct value. So I'm going to hit enter now, and it jumps back correctly. So that's a little tip for you. Just kind of keep it in mind in case you're doing something like this.
Nice.
Okay. Now let's take a look at something called a range. Every once in a while, you'll get the term a range. A range is 2 or more cells that can be adjacent to each other. They can be down, they can be across, it doesn't matter which way it is. And if I'm highlighting these cells, this is considered a range. If we come up here, the very first cell, K10, okay, here's 10, here's the K, okay. That cell, K10, is what's up here, right? Because that's the first cell in the name box. However, if I wanted to refer to this entire range, this is the way you refer to it, with the address of the first cell and the address of the last cell. So if I was doing a sum, I could put in sum K10 colon K15, and Excel would know is add all the numbers between those two cells. So that's another way of locating things and talking about them. Now, everybody following? Because I'm going to continue. Okay. No questions. So let me do the last one I want to talk about. If I looked at this particular cell, its address is C18, C19, C20. There's another way to refer to this besides these, okay? Our experience so far has been we put something over here saying, you know, this refers to these cells like, you know, January, February, March, things like that. But we can do something a little bit different. We can go in the cell and come up here and click this and change this and give it a name. I'm going to call this cell, let me change it. I'm going to call this cell Bob. Okay. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to call this cell Mary. And I'm going to come down here and call this cell Joe. All right. Now that looks strange. Okay. So didn't take it. Joe took. Mary didn't take. Why not? Okay, here's Bob, Mary, and Joe. So I could set a formula over here. Is that neat?
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. This I found is used typically in things like you're doing some business calculations and you reach a total at some time. Maybe I'm doing a spreadsheet looking at income statement or cost of goods or something like that. And I have a name. This may be, you know, total images, all right? And I could give the cell value total images a name. And then somewhere else I can say, I want to add total images and total something and total something and total something without worrying about where it's located, okay? Remember, when I set this up initially, I had to physically go back and find it. And in a large spreadsheet, that's a pain. But if I have names associated with a cell, all I have to do is know what the names are, and I can do something meaningful. Any questions on any of that stuff? Some of it should be familiar if you played with spreadsheets. Some might be a little bit unusual. So just as a quick review, we can have relative addressing, absolute addressing. We can link to another spreadsheet and pull it up. We can talk about ranges, or we can assign names to particular cells. Right?
Okay, I have a question.
Oh, I have an answer. Go ahead.
When you're up there using the dollar signs, do
Yes,
you leave the dollar sign off the second?
if I left the dollar sign off the second over here,
Yeah, at the
Okay.
top.
yeah, up here,
Yeah.
okay. The dollar sign says this
That
is
part be moving with the formula?
I'm sorry?
Would that section of the column be moving with the formula? If
The
you did with the-
absolute, yeah, the absolute symbol would remain. This one would be relative and
Yeah.
it would increment or decrement. Yes, it would change automatically.
And would there be any reason to do that that you know of?
I have never tried it, but since they put the feature in, there must be some occasion where you might want to freeze either a column or freeze a row and not the individual cells.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, certainly can do it. Okay. Any other questions? Yep.
Would it be practical where you've got, under names? Would it be practical to put the name in the cell? With, you know, the actual name in the cell along with the 5?
Well, you want to put a name plus a name?
Yeah, like if you put Bob, Mary, Joe, in the cell itself, so it'd be easy to find.
You could,
But
But
then you
re-
wouldn't see the
re-
data.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be the data. You know,
Hmm.
you could post it someplace. Here, let's try one. Let's see, let's say Bill, okay? And over here,
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but I think if you put a name in the cell, then you
Yeah,
won't be
like-
able to put a number in there.
Yeah, like I was wondering if you put
well, I don't know. Let
Like
me
in
see what
cell-
happens.
where you have that there in cell C18, if you put like,
Here, you see what happened here? I put this equal to Bill. And Bill came up. I don't know if it did it because I said it was equal or if it went to this location. Let me show you again. If I put an equal sign here and I click this location, I'm not typing anything here. I'm clicking this location. It picked up the value in that cell. And here's the value, Bill.
But it doesn't have a value.
Exactly.
It does have a value. Inside the cell is the text value, Bill. And
But it
that's
no
what
longer
picked
has a
up.
numerical value.
Doesn't have to be numerical. This proves it.
so my,
It will,
yeah,
it will
my
take
question-
the contents of the cell at that particular address.
okay, so my question is, if I put under 18, cell C18, if I put Bill in there with the 5, how would that change that whole cell?
If you put over here, just
No, if I put it right under, on the same cell as 5,
You can't.
you can't do that. Okay,
But what
Right.
you could do, I think, Dennis, is go to a blank cell and do like equal Joe.
okay.
hmm,
And Joe
Is
picked
that
up.
what you were thinking, Renee?
yeah.
That's what I showed over here when we did this formula.
Yeah,
Bob
but I was
plus
just
Mary
showing how you
plus
can
Joe.
transfer the numerical value.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was also, my other thought was that you can't put the actual name in the cell along with the data and for it to show up correctly.
Correct.
yeah, I can
The
keep
same
the,
cell, in the same cell.
yeah,
Like
I don't know why,
Bill equals 5 or something, you know,
yeah,
in that same cell under names where the 5 is, or the 45 is, or the 50 is, in that same cell. You can't do that.
Right.
I'm not sure why you'd want to do it, but
I don't know.
Yep. okay. All right, let me continue here while we have some time. I am a volunteer at AARP, Driver Safety, and I'm going to show you some spreadsheets that we use in that particular program. All right. This is a spreadsheet, or excuse me, this is an image of the state of Oregon. I'm not going to use it as an example, but I do want to point something out which can get confusing in a minute or two if you don't understand it. Arbitrarily, a number of years ago, AARP, for administrative and management purposes only, divided the state into 3 zones, zones 1, 2, and 3, right? And inside the zone, they numbered things called districts. And the districts are usually geographic areas like a county. But zone 1 does not have districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. Zone 1 has district 8 and 10 and 11 up here. And zone 2 has district 1 and 3 and 14. And zone 3 has the same arrangement. So the zone is a large physical area, and then it has districts of any particular number that was assigned years and years ago. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Right, okay, just, all right, here's the reason I'm showing you that. This is a spreadsheet called a host list. And in every one of those little districts, we may find locations where different organizations allow us to teach classes. It could be a library, it could be a senior center, it could be a hospital, any of those kinds of things, all right? This is a list of all of the hosts in the state of Oregon a year or so ago. With COVID, I don't know that we have any of these folks left, right? What's confusing about this is zone 1 and this is the district. So if I started sliding down, let me make it a little bit bigger.
Please.
Okay. Zone 2 has districts in it, right? But the districts right here are in numerical order. You see those? But the zones are changing over here. So this is zone 2, and as I scroll down, it went to zone 3.
Huh.
Okay. So what you're seeing here is the sequence is based on the zone, and whatever districts are in that zone show up. This is District 8 followed by District 10. Let me just see something. Yeah, my Zoom is not working for some reason. Huh, that's strange. I can't get a Zoom here. All right. Anyway, what I wanted to show you on how this is organized, because it'll make more sense in a minute or so, right? So I can control where I'm looking by moving the scroll bars. And I can scroll up, I can come down here, and I can scroll this way. So you can see there's a lot of information about each one of the hosts. If we come up here, we have the zone, district, location. There's an ID, there's a status, there's the type of facility it is, addresses, city, postal codes, state, and some other information over here. And way over here has the county, right? Now, if I don't particularly care for this organization, I have the capability of doing something else. Let's see if I can move this. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go back to home here for a moment. Right. One of the things you have on all keyboards is a home and an end key. If I hit the end key, what it has done, it is not gone to the end of the file. And I'm gonna hit the home key. If you take a look over here, this is over here, a 37. So I went 36, 37. I hit the end key. And here's 37, and it's given me basically a page at a time. Right? That may be or may not be what I want. If I want to see the whole thing, then this is a little tricky. You can hold the control, the shift, and the down arrow, and it will advance you. And if you do the same thing, it will go back. So this particular spreadsheet, the last entry is at row 427. Right? And if I want to go back up, I can hit the control shift and up arrow. So this is one way of getting around a very large spreadsheet. Right? Now, on this particular spreadsheet, we said that it's arranged by zones, but I might not want it to be by a zone. That didn't do it. I'm going to go over here and remember districts are 8. I want to highlight this and I'm having difficulty here for some strange reason. Huh. Okay, I haven't tried this with a screen share, but for some reason with a screen share, I'm getting grayed out areas. And that doesn't make sense to me.
How come you got 2 arrows?
Yeah, we're seeing 2 cursors.
Well, that might be part of the problem. I don't know why. Because on my screen, all I see is a white cross. I don't
And
see
we're
the
seeing a
blue.
black arrow too.
Yeah, in fact, I see 3 of them on that. I do not understand that. Let me close this for a second. You still see 2?
Yeah,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I apologize. I do not know what's happening here. I ran this thing several times, but I never tried it.
It's
Zoom.
almost like it's trailing because when you stop, they sometimes come together.
Yeah, but they're separated here.
Yeah, it's odd.
Okay. What I'm trying to do is get something to show up and it's not showing up. See, when I go to the other tabs, they're all grayed out
Mm-hmm.
and they should not be grayed out. Well, I apologize. My example's not working. Let me go to something else for a second. Okay, you see over here where it says sort and filter?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to do on this particular list. Okay,
There it is.
there it is. Okay, let me try this. I want to resort this list. So I'm going to click this sort and filter. And I say, starting on this particular column, I want to sort from A to Z. All right. And I'll hit it. And it gives me a warning. And this is critical. Right? It's saying, do I want to expand the selection or continue with the current selection? What that means is, if I continue with the current selection, this column will be sorted. Nothing else in here will be sorted. So the relationship is destroyed because the districts will be district 1, 2, 3, but it will not match the correct location. So what I want to do is expand the selection and say sort, and the entire spreadsheet got sorted. Everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for example, I can use this. Here's a status. It's mixed with active and inactive. Active means that they are currently acting as a host. We can hold classes. Inactive means that they stopped acting as a host. I may want to take a look over here and sort again. All I want to see is the active sites. So if I scroll down, here's all the active. Here's a list of inactive. Okay. Let's take a look at something else. Maybe I'm interested in what kinds of locations do we have? So I can say I want to sort them. And notice they're now in the alphabetical order. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me show you some of the power on it. I'm going to come over here and I want to do, for example, or let me show you something first. If you notice over here, I have a city, but if I scroll over here, Okay, the county's way over here, and the county is not alphabetized and the city is not alphabetized. So I want to alphabetize them. And this time I'm going to a custom sort. Okay. And in a custom sort, it says, what do you want to start by? Well, over here, I'm going to click it. I want to start by the city. Okay. And I also want to add a level. And this time I want to sort by the county. Okay. So I'm going to do two sorts. First, it's going to sort by the city. And then within each city, or excuse me, let me go back. Yeah, that'll work. And then with each city, I want to, let me reverse what I want to do. I want to sort by the county
Yeah.
and then by the city within the county. The other way wouldn't have made any sense. Right? Okay, so let's do this. All right. So what I have now here is I have some cities over here. And if I come over here to the county, this starts out with Unity. We can see that it's Baker, Benton, Clackamas, all right? And here's one of the critical things. This particular spreadsheet is based on a data file in Washington, DC that somebody extracted. When people set up the original data file, multiple people were setting it up. And the way they did it, some people put Baker County over here, and some people put the word Baker. Same thing happened with Benton. As far as a computer is concerned, these are two different animals. That's why they're separated. Computer doesn't have any logic. It makes a one-to-one comparison. These two don't match, so they're different. Same thing happened with Benton. Same thing happened with Clackamas. And I caution you, when you build things, if you're sharing the building with anybody else, make sure that you all say the same thing, or you're going to have this kind of problem. Right? That's why when we come back here and we look at cities, right, the first city is Unity, which doesn't make much sense. And then we come down with a couple that are alphabetical, and then we have a bunch more, and then it varies again by the county. Right? Does that make sense? It's a little esoteric.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's esoteric or makes sense? I asked two questions.
Both.
Makes sense? Okay. Now, one of the things you can do, for example, and let's come back here, right? I have all kinds of information here, and to me, it is overwhelming. Right? So what I might want to do is take a look at only some of the information. For example, I might look at location type and I say, gee, I have a school education, I have a school education. I might have some more schools and education down here. I don't know how many of them I have. So one thing I can do is I can come back to the sort and filter. And this time, instead of sorts, I'm going to say, I want to filter. Right? When I said filter, each one of these columns got this little symbol here, which is a drop-down arrow. Everyone see that?
Mhm.
I'm going to click the location drop-down arrow. And I want to sort this location, okay, by A to Z. And what I want to select is which one of these search animals. So I'm going to get rid of all of them, right? And I want location type. So I'll scroll down here to the type of things I'm looking at. And we said we wanted to look at schools. So here's school and education, and I'm going to say, okay. What happened is I'm seeing now schools and education, and I only have 367 here, right? I don't have any more of the full spreadsheet. Notice what happened over here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 16, 49. So it has hidden everything that is not a school or an educational institute. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Once I'm filtering, I can continue filtering. For example, I have schools and education. These are inactive and these are active. So I can go here and say, I don't want to select them all. I want to select only active ones. All right. So out of that big list of 427 different locations, all I'm showing is those that have a location of school, education, institute, and the status active. Is there any question on that? Okay. I
You're
can
going to
come
show us
back
how to
here.
get back to the full spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, right here I can say clear the filter.
Ah,
I can
nice.
come back here and clear the filter. And I'm back to the entire spreadsheet. Right. So this is very handy if you want to isolate some information, figure out what you want to isolate, and it basically hides everything. Right. Remember, one of the things you have to keep in mind, Excel maintains the database in its tables, and it only displays things that you want to see.
I got a question.
Okay.
Let's say you went to make some filters and you accidentally saved it and you didn't give it in other words,
It would override your save.
yeah, it would override the original spreadsheet.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if, when you went to get it back, all you would see is what you filtered, but I don't think you'd be able to get the original spreadsheet back. Is that correct?
No,
Right.
you should
Well,
get the original back. What you should, if I did a save after a filter, I would still have this information saved.
Right.
I'd come back and clear it.
Right.
Remember, Excel has all the data in their files. It's only displaying certain information for you.
Renee, that would only be true if you actually deleted data from the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Okay. Now, one of the problems that you have with this kind of a display is you see this header line here, zone, district, location. Right? As I scroll, it disappeared. Right? So I get down here and I say, I don't know what the heck this means because I don't have a header anymore. So that's kind of a pain.
Mm-hmm.
Excel has come up with a way you can save that. And if you come up here to the view, right, there's a little item here called freeze panes. So if I click freeze panes, it says I can freeze the top row. Everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say freeze the top row. Watch what happens when I scroll. Isn't that neat?
Oh, that's so much easier.
Okay. Now it has another one here. I'm going to unfreeze now. It says freeze the first column. I do not know why, but that does not work for me. You can see the first column is still not unfrozen. Right?
What if you
So,
scrolled right to left?
Yeah, go the other way.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. Oh, you're right. Okay. Very good. I forgot that. Okay, so it has frozen the column and you can scroll from right to left. This is still kind of a pain because I know what this is, the zone, right? But I don't know what anything else is.
Sure.
Meaning once I've passed the location, I don't know anymore what kind of location it is. I know the city, I know the address, but is it a funeral parlor or a school? I don't know. So Excel, let's come back here and unfreeze panes, okay? Excel has another thing called a split. See this? right?
Yeah.
Split will do something different for you. For example, if I come over here and I want to see the zone, the district, and the location, right? I can come over here and split. If you notice here, there's another thicker line has come up. Here's thin lines, thin line, thick line, okay? Looks like all I've done is put a line in. But what I now have down at the bottom is 2 scroll bars. So I actually have 2 images of the sheet. And it's split right after these first 3 columns. So I can now scroll over here, okay? And I can say, which county is Burnt River School in? It's in Baker. Right? What's their phone number? It's over here. I can scroll over here and say, what's their postal code and what the city is. And it is getting that information for me.
Dennis,
make
how did
sense?
you make it split specifically right there?
Okay, let me go back. Wherever you want to split, go over 1 more column. Okay, so I want the location ID in these 3 items, all right? Well, let's go over here. I want all of this information. So I come up and I say split. The split went right here, right?
So
Now
you
when I
click the
move,
column to the right first.
correct,
Cool,
Okay.
thank you.
yeah. We can use it another way. If I come over here, let's see. Trying to think if I can do what I want to do. Not sure if this will work or not. I haven't tried it in a while. Let's see if a split works. Yeah. See what has happened? I've locked in the first couple.
Cool.
So I can split this way or I can split up and down. So for example, if I had a location and another header or 2 headers underneath it, I could display all the headers. Where if I came into the freeze panes, it only wants to freeze the first column or the top row. So if I want to basically freeze more than the top row, instead of doing a freeze, I can do a split. Okay. A lot of information there. Any questions?
Good.
Yes.
Yep.
Go ahead. Sue, do you have a question?
No,
Okay, I got a question. Let's say you freeze the top lines so you see the location and all that kind of stuff. When you print that out, will that print out exactly the way you froze it?
Oh, I don't know. Oh,
Because that's one of the
you're
issues that I
saying
have.
I don't know what will print out. So
Okay.
let's do something. Okay, let's do over here. Let's do a split. Okay.
Okay,
Now I'm going to come over here to File, and I want to do a print.
print preview maybe? Location.
No, let me come back. Let me go down here to something different. Okay, the split didn't make any difference. What I did was I came down here to a page. This is called a page break preview.
Right,
This is what will actually print.
okay,
So this is page 1. If you scroll down, this is page 2. What we're seeing here is everything on the original spreadsheet before the split.
right.
Okay. And this is a very good place to always go, because as you're working on a spreadsheet, you sometimes forget how many lines or how many columns will actually show up when you print. And that can drive you nuts when you start printing and suddenly you're missing information. I did a spreadsheet last week, and I think I came out with 8 pages, and I had to tape them together. You know, I had to put this sheet with this sheet and run some cellophane tape down
Yeah,
so I could show somebody the spreadsheet. I frankly do not know how to get around that.
And you know, if your sheet isn't too big, you can fit it all on one page. This sheet, of course, wouldn't work
Yeah.
and be legible. But like
Yeah,
sometimes
well-
I have a spreadsheet that's just a little too big and I'll select the fit to a page to print it on
Right.
one landscape page.
yeah, I was just wondering if you got like 3 pages, like for instance, like our membership list, then when I print that up, it doesn't show all the top headers. And so, it just continues at the page. So I've got to kind of like paste them together or something. Otherwise, and I was just wondering if each page, if you froze it, if each page would show a header if you froze it, but apparently it won't.
I don't think so.
But I'll try that. I'll try it just for fun.
Yeah, play
Well,
around with
if
that.
you come down to this second one here, these are the pages that are going to print out. You can physically add a header to each one. I could type a header right in here.
Okay.
So when it prints, it might have one header here, might have the same header here, or I may have changed my mind and put a different header in.
Okay.
And in the same token, I believe you can scroll down to the footer. Yeah, you can add a footer here.
Okay.
Does that solve your problem?
Yeah, that might
Yeah,
do it.
that might work.
Okay. So basically that covers the majority of things I wanted to show you. In the file over here, you can see the print command will give you some information, but over here, that other bar will give you much more. I assume everybody knows what a save and a save as is.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Okay. If you want to save this, you can export it. Okay. And it may export in a different format. Remember, this is an Excel format. You can change the file type. If I did an export here, it would create a PDF XPS document. I could change the file type to a different kind of file. I'm not going to go into it now, but one of the common things is a comma base file, where all of these records, it has this information, comma, this information, comma, this information, comma. It's a comma separated file. And sometimes that's easier to transport back and forth and manipulate. Right?
Yeah, so if
Those are
somebody
the-
says save it as a CSV, you want to make sure when you're doing your save as to select the CSV option.
Right. While we have a minute, let me show you a couple of things that we kind of touched on before, and I'll show you a little fun one. We went through here before, and if you remember, we did some things here. One of the things we did was build a chart. Right. Remember that?
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
was the Alt F1, so we had a chart title. Okay. One of the things we can do, which helps sometimes, is you can come up here and then do a right click and go down to Format Cells. And in Format Cells, I have something called a border. And this is the presets on the border. Now, I can run a border over the top, the left, the bottom, or inside, where I can say I want the outline and I want the inside and say, okay. And I've just built a little table. So that's kind of a nice little guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you one more, which I came across kind of accidentally. And over here, I have something called a people graph, and I have some days and some numbers, right? I'm going to make a little graph out of this. Let's see. Let's see which one I want. Let me go over here. Okay, I went to insert here. If
Mhm.
you are using a browser, you may have come across something called add-ins on a browser or extensions.
Mhm.
These are additional programs that other people have made, which you can connect to your main program. And it will give you some capabilities your main program doesn't normally have. And that's the add-on button here. So I got an add-on. Okay, this says get add-ons. It will show you the add-ons you can add to the Office, right? And if I click my add-ons, I selected two of them. I have a spell checker and have something called a people graph. And this is kind of cute. I'm going to add it. Okay. And it's now loading the people graph. I'm going to pull it down a little bit. Okay. And if I click inside over here, I have a couple of tabs. Right? One of the tabs says I can have different kinds of images. The other tab says I can select my data and my title. Okay. I'm going to change this and say this is a people graph. Okay. And I'm going to select my data. And by over here, it says I've selected 7 rows and 2 columns. And it has gone right here. Here's the 7 rows and the 2 columns. And I can say create a graph for me. And here's this information over here, and it's displayed differently. So if you want to make kind of, a change from the standard type of graph, pie charts and bars and trend lines and things like that, you can play with a little bit and get this stuff. All right. So it's just kind of a cute thing. You can also change the themes or the shapes, right? Maybe I don't want people, I want little watches. Okay. Everyone sticking around, I'll show you a couple of other things. Right?
It's cool too, if you're doing like a presentation, you can get a better graphic in your presentation.
Yeah. And maybe you're selling something, you're a jeweler, and you want to figure out some
There you go.
information. Notice how some of these are shaded part way, because these represent more of a whole number. Or maybe I'm selling clothes. Okay. All right, I'm going to go to a couple of other charts. I'm going to show you one. This is an example of using Excel to build charts, and there's no calculations involved. There's no formulas. I'm not playing any games here. And I grabbed one from a number of years ago. This is one of the districts. It's Coos in Curry County. And it's just a schedule saying that we're going to hold a class in January, right, at this class time. And here's the location and phone number and some information about it, right? And you can build information for each one of the months, right? Now, one of the things you want to keep in mind when you build something like this, it may or may not print out the way you think it's going to. So if I came over here to the print, right, this fits. Over here, it doesn't. I have some headings, okay, that are going to, this line here will be at the bottom of page 1, and these 2 lines will be at the top of page 2. That might not be what I want. Right? So all I can tell you is I saved a tremendous amount of time by using this little symbol down here, other than actually going to the printer and I print it out and I say, okay, why did I bother? It didn't come out right. So that's a way to save you some stuff. I'll show you one more. Here's a chart that I was using when I was running this particular district. I listed all of the volunteers in the district, and I put down all of the months of the year. Now, I did not create this particular chart. A friend of mine created it for his particular district. All I did was got a blank copy and I filled it in. But what I had to record every month was how many students did we have called participants, and how many classes did we have? How many volunteers did I have in my district, and how many instructors, or how many volunteers were actually instructors? So as I built these things, I just kept track of who was teaching classes and how many classes we had. And then I came down here and I wanted to know the average class size and the average number of classes that an instructor taught. So this is a different kind of use. It doesn't look like, you know, your historical business spreadsheet. So those are basically what I wanted to show. I'm open to questions. I'm going to close this for a moment.
Anybody have any questions for Dennis?
I do.
Go ahead, Sue.
Go ahead.
In a column, I do a spreadsheet and I put in addresses and everything, and I find a mistake like in a long address. I have to type the whole thing in all over again. Is that correct?
No.
How would I do that?
So
You should be
Sue,
able to
all you
wrap
need,
it.
wait 1 second. Sue, if you just click the cell that has the data,
Yeah.
then you can go up to the top and correct what you need to correct up there.
Ah, okay.
You know how whatever's in the
I know.
cells represent at the top?
Yeah.
That's where I edit mine, up at the top.
I didn't even think about that. Okay.
Because you can
thanks.
put your cursor right where you need to go if you need to delete a letter or add a letter. But no, you never have to go and retype everything in the
I knew
cell.
it'd be something easy.
Great question, though.
Can you name different pages, different titles?
Sure. Let's go back there for a second. Okay, over here it says sheet 1, sheet 2. I'm calling this absolute addressing, host list, schedule of classes. Here's sheet 3, because you can move these around. So I double click sheet 3 and I say examples. If I could spell. So you can call it anything you want. You can also take it and slide it around. Okay, so I just moved it from here to here. So for this particular presentation, I made up a bunch of sheets and then I put them in the sequence I wanted to go through. Okay,
Nice.
Thank you.
And Dennis, Connie said, thank you for this. I'm taking away several useful tools. She said her questions are about pivot tables, maybe another class.
yeah, I personally have not played with pivot tables. I know that pivot tables are used for summary information. I've done some reading about them, but I personally have never set one up. I would have to experiment.
Would everybody here be interested in a more advanced Excel class if we were to put one together?
Sure.
Okay, maybe Dennis and I will talk about that. We hadn't planned one past this one, but maybe.
Yeah, well,
Maybe we
what would
can-
be very helpful is send us, Paul or me, some topics.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to lay the basics out. What I did in preparation for this thing, I went to Google and there's a bunch of free Excel classes.
Mhm.
And I went through a whole bunch of them and I said, you know, what are the basics in this class? Because sometimes they're going to have a free class on formulas. And by the time you hit the second session, you're deep into formulas and you lost track of everything else. So I tried to be very, very basic and just give you solid fundamentals, which you can build on. So
Yeah.
for example, one of the features you can do in here, you can create macros. And a macro is a little program. Well, I don't want to do that particularly because now I have to teach you something about programming. Okay, and all of the little formula steps you can do, because you can actually write some fairly sophisticated programs in Excel. And it's almost like a programming language,
Yeah,
but that's way beyond what I think folks like us are gonna need.
possibly. Yeah,
Yeah,
Connie
it kind
added
of drives,
she's,
it kind
Go
of
ahead,
drives
Renee.
me crazy because I inherited the membership list and the guy who developed it put a bunch of macros in it. And I don't know what to, how to change that or fix it or anything. So I just leave them there, but it's kind of a pain.
Yeah, all a macro is, in case you haven't encountered, is if you're doing a series of steps, right? You can capture those steps in a little file and associate that file with Excel. And when you execute the program, that macro will come in and do all those steps automatically for you. So if you have a sequence that you're repeating over and over again, you can save a lot of time by making it a macro.
And how to change that so you can get rid of those macros is another question.
Well, you have to understand what's inside of it, or
Yeah.
you can, well, I think you can delete it. I haven't done a macro in years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one thing when you copy a spreadsheet from somebody else, or you even use an Excel template, you're stuck with a lot of those formulas. And if you don't understand the way it was built, it can be very difficult. I often find it easier to start my own spreadsheet from scratch. That way I know what the formulas are and I know where they are and how to find them and change them.
Okay.
But as Dennis, we are a bit over time, but as Dennis said, if anybody has any ideas for, this class or any other classes related to technology, shoot us an email. Everybody has my email in their Zoom confirmation, and we'll look into setting up another class based on what y'all are interested in.
Yeah, and you ought to go